Good evening. Welcome, everyone. It is so great to see so many alumni, students, faculty, staff, board members with us here at the National Press Club tonight. My name is Matt Camp. I am Director of Government Relations and Community Engagement at Teachers College. So that includes alumni relations and government relations. So I figured DC alumni event is the right room to be in for that. TC alumni are over 90,000 strong around the world, making true change in health psychology education and, of course, policy. I'm actually a policy graduate myself, having graduated with a PhD in politics and education from EPSA. Any EPSA grads here or students? Great. Yes. Good to see you. So along with my colleagues, Steph Caballero and Lauren Duncan, Lauren, hi. We are revitalizing alumni relations at Teachers College. We're taking a grassroots organizing approach to really be good listeners and to understand the needs and desires and hopes of TC graduates. And so if you have ideas, we want to know about them. We're looking, whether it's events, lifelong learning, social opportunities, we want to know about it. So we're also looking for regional volunteers. Here in DC, we have Zeke Lyons and Nadia Ford helping with that effort. So if you want to be involved with that, come see Lauren or I after the talk, and we will go back to the reception afterwards. So we have lots of great engagement opportunities coming up, lots of affinity groups that are forming throughout the country, throughout the world. For example, we've got Impact Day and Civic Education Week coming up in mid-March. Has anybody been thinking about the 2024 election by any chance? So it's on our minds. And at Teachers College, we're really happy to be collaborating with the All-In Campus Democracy Challenge. Has anybody heard of that? Maybe at their undergrad institutions. It's a nonpartisan coalition of about 1,000 colleges throughout the country who are getting together to increase civic engagement and voter registration. So we really do need your help locally and throughout the country to register voters. So we'll be, and again, if you do want to get involved with that, let me know, let Lauren know, that would be great. So tonight we will be hearing from our Provost of the college, KerryAnn O'Meara. We'll be hearing from Professor Lynn Kagan, and also from our alum, Jessica Cardichon. We're really excited. KerryAnn O'Meara became Vice President and for Academic Affairs, Provost and Dean of the college on July 5th, 2023. She's a professor in the higher ed post-secondary program, which is in the org leadership department. KerryAnn's scholarship and leadership are highly integrated and focus on creating a more diverse and inclusive academic experience and workplace. And she has designed, tested, and shared evidence-based strategies to remove barriers and to improve participation for women and racially minoritized groups, with particular attention to faculty hiring, retention, workload, and evaluation. So won't you please let's give KerryAnn a big round of applause.
Thank you, Matt. It is so wonderful to be here with everybody. There's such incredible energy. It is so, it means so much to meet so many of our alum here in DC. This is such a great event. Students are just high on the experience and all their learning. I'm just really excited for the speech, so I'll just start there with a lot of energy. So I'd like to take a moment, of course, to begin by thanking Matt and colleagues who work so hard on this important event, including our TC alumni and community engagement team. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to TC board member Jay Urwitz, who is here, and to Professor Kagan and her TC students who have joined us as part of the Federal Policy Institute. That's right. Current and future leaders, that's right. I'd also like to say that I'm really looking forward to our Special Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy Council, and importantly, a TC alum, Jessica Cardichon's speech, which is coming up soon. So today's event really embodies the very best of what Teachers College has to offer. I'm short, so I'm going to move that down. So our definition of success, our victory lap, is seeing the change that TC alum make in the world. And DC is a very special place to see that change, as so much of the policy and decisions made here affect opportunities in the US and abroad. So being here with you in DC is familiar to me, as I worked at the University of Maryland in College Park for 16 years. Yeah, go Terps. That's right. Still a Terp. And our higher education students went to work at AGB, Department of Education, which I always thought DOE meant the U.S. Department of Education. In New York, it's DOE. It means New York when folks use it. ACE and the alphabet soup of DuPont Circle. My husband, who is actually a 95 higher ed alum, when it was called Student Personnel Administration from TC. My husband works in education policy in the Office of Special Education, OSEP, at the Department of Ed. And so what's happening with individuals with the Disabilities Education Act, appropriations, working with states on ensuring that federal funds are spent as intended, are regular sources of dinner conversation, much to our 3 daughters' chagrin. And I joined Teachers College as provost this summer, pulled toward TC's history, its history of leadership, its social justice mission, the amazing people who have come through those halls and gone on to make an impact, but also because of the word's relevance and the sense of urgency that TC talented students, staff, and faculty have about change now. And I wanted to be a part of that, as well as the overall sense that TC has always had about the interaction between education, health, and psychology toward human flourishing, that you can't look at one piece in isolation of another. So as you know, we're living at a time of significant challenges across education, psychology, and health. We have a national literacy crisis. We know that children and families who learn to read and write have greater health, income, and participation in civic life. When children and families don't have access to the opportunity to learn to read and write, they face greater poverty, unemployment, discrimination. As the nation's largest school district, which is often illustrative of the complexity of the challenges that are faced, the percentage of students in New York City who performed at or above the NAEP proficient level for reading was 26% in 2022. The cascading effects of reading difficulties affect every other aspect of schooling, as reading and writing are critical to all other subjects, and the ability to develop secondary literacies in math, social sciences, and social studies. We also have the challenge of chronic absenteeism. It's estimated that up to 30% of students missed 10% or more of school in 21-22, hurting their academic performance and increasing chances of dropout. Challenges in literacy and absenteeism are not unrelated to the mental health crises that we face. So currently, 200 million youth worldwide struggle with mental health issues since the COVID-19 pandemic, and experts have noted significant crisis-level increases. At the same time, we're at a critical juncture for the digital future of education. And of course, educators need to define best practices and leverage tools to make education more equitable and effective, and also to navigate AI and a more covert and pervasive misinformation landscape. Yet the technology gap in the US persists at an alarming level, with 12 million American children who don't have access. So, I was talking about some of the challenges and saying that, within all of these, we also have a shortage of prepared educators, right? Especially Black and Hispanic teachers, multilingual, special educators within the country. In some school districts, they're 50% down in terms of teachers. And likewise, New York faces this. You might have just seen that New York announced a desire to move to smaller class sizes. Well, we need more teachers in order to make that happen, right? So you might have heard that TC was ranked the #1 graduate school of education by the U.S. News and World Report. Now, I used to teach a class on ranking systems. I had Bob Morse and in my class to talk with our students at Maryland when we did, and we all know there's just a few problems with the rankings. No matter where you fall, even if you fall #1 this year, But I think TC is first in so many other ways because of who we are, where we are, and how we approach the kinds of educational and societal challenges that were just mentioned. So, who is TC today? Well, 49% of our student body are students of color, 25% are first generation graduate students, 33% are international, 66% of students are multilingual. Think about that. And we estimate that at least 40 languages are spoken just among our student population. 35% of domestic faculty identify as persons of color, 44% of TC's administrative staff, and the majority of our union employees identify as people of color. We are also really proud, as Matt said, to have 90,000 alumni from around the world. And as an affiliate institution of Columbia, we're the first and the largest graduate school of education in the nation. And TC has evolved and been shaped by the diversity of identity, thought, space, and history of New York City, and Morningside Heights and Harlem specifically. It's not a coincidence that today, the nation's first Black Studies curriculum is being created by Burke, the Black Education Research Center at TC just steps from Harlem. Nor is it happenstance that our faculty advance inclusion for multilingual learners in the most linguistically diverse city in the world, or that our dance and art education programs are so strong when TC is situated in the global center of the arts. TC was founded in 1887 to improve the life chances of immigrant women. TC founders believe deeply that educational opportunity is connected to physical and mental health, income and resources, community and identity. And that idea that a holistic approach to education could be transformative, and not just for individuals, but for society. This holistic, integrated understanding of the power of education, when understood in the context of other opportunities, along with an abiding commitment to social justice, still deeply shapes the interests of our students, such as the ones that are here today, so many of whom are interested in issues of educational disparities, equity gaps, and closing them. Take, for example, Professor Kim Noble's Babies First Years project, groundbreaking in identifying the links between cash payments to mothers in poverty and their infants' brain development. In fact, Professor Noble recently testified about the impact of an early childhood tax credit in New York and the state in New York State, and the state shortly after passed that tax credit. Students will not have the freedom to learn if they're not safe. Professor Sonali Rajan is a national leader in the study of gun violence prevention and is the inaugural president of the Research Society for Firearm-Related Harms, which just had its second conference drawing 700 attendees. We can't learn if we're not invited to the table. Professor Chris Emden's nationally recognized work through Hip Hop Ed creatively draws students in through popular culture and hip hop, making STEM careers more accessible, exciting for new groups of budding scientists that didn't always feel invited before. We can't thrive without culturally responsive systems of support. Our counseling assistant professor, Cindy Wong, is partnering with the New York Department of Health to work with Asian communities, schools, and pediatricians to develop checkups that ask the critical questions that can diagnose depression and prevent suicide. We have 17 programs that lead to New York State teaching certificate, and students in all of them receive comprehensive literacy instruction across what is commonly described as the reading rope, right? Phonemic awareness, phonics instruction, fluency, comprehension. But importantly, that instruction of our pre-service teachers is situated in a context that understands and centers student needs, inclusion, and the many conditions, including culture and community and resources that shape learning. You'll find that our doctoral graduates in New York City public schools and worldwide are designing curriculum, assessments, and policy. Our TC teachers are especially well prepared for and a distinct asset in New York City schools, and deeply invested in equity and justice for marginalized communities. Not surprisingly, you will also find TC faculty weighing in on many policy issues such as teacher salaries, standards-based accountability systems, and 4-day school weeks, civic education, climate change education, and improving retention in our nation's community colleges. And of course, Professor Sharon Lynn Kagan's incredible work on early childhood practice and policies in the United States and throughout the world. you might be getting the idea that I'm proud to be a teacher's college. And I want you to be proud of Teachers College, whether you graduated from Teachers College, are a student now, or are one of our dear and close friends. There is much to be proud of and excited about moving forward. To that end, President Bailey and I have launched a series of dialogues at Teachers College this year called TC Commitments. Here we're clarifying the most ardent and compelling commitments we want to make to our students, to our scholarship and communities of practice, to New York City and partners, and to the college and each other as we transform to thrive over the next 5 years. These dialogues, which have already engaged students, faculty, staff, and alum, will end in the development of a vision and action statement that we look forward to sharing with you soon. This vision and action statement will have specific actions we can take, such as, for example, as Matt mentioned, strengthening our connections to our alum through affinity pods, ensuring that greater support for TC graduates as they move into their careers. In sum, since joining TC last July, I've been really blown away by the talent that we have in our community and our network, as well as the impact our alum are having in the world on a daily basis. With that talent and the profound legacy that's handed to us by such an important institution in the world, I know even better days are ahead. And we look forward to being in touch with you as we hear your ideas about how to live our commitments and the opportunities we create in the next 5 years. And it's now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Lynn Kagan. Professor Kagan is the Virginia and Leonard Marx Professor of Early Childhood and Family Policy, co-director of the National Center for Children and Families at Teachers College, Columbia University, and also Professor Adjunct at Yale University's Child Studies Center. She has helped shape early childhood practice and policies in the United States and in countries throughout the world. Author of just a few, 225 articles and 13 books, her research focuses on the institutions that impact child and family life. She works to improve the design and quality of early childhood policies and practices by consulting with the White House, federal and state agencies, elected and appointed policymakers, including governors, members of Congress and legislatures, foundations, and corporations. She is also the leader of the TC class that has a waiting list a mile long. And I think maybe we might say this is the best class ever of the Federal Policy Institute. So please join me in welcoming Professor Kagan.
I think we're all extremely lucky to have Provost O'Meara in our midst, and I want to say welcome and thank you for all of the incredible support that you have rendered to me personally and to Teachers College and to the Federal Policy Institute. I also, of course, want to acknowledge Matt. Matt is tied up, and of course, Jay, who has been the longest policy stalwart on record. I also would like to ask us to acknowledge our luck for good health and send good wishes to our colleague adjacent to us right now, that her health may be restored and be as fine as ours is. So just a moment, please, for sending good wishes. Okay, thank you. I actually got a pretty simple job tonight, which is nice. All that I have to do is do a few explanations and then a most remarkable introduction. Let me start with the explanations first. I want to talk to you a little bit about the Federal Policy Institute. The Federal Policy Institute shares a lot of goals with many other policy courses at TC. We talk about political theory. We try to understand different conceptualizations of what policy looks like. We try to understand contemporary policy. And we do all this with fervor and with gusto. But it's also stunningly different. First, the FPI is designed to be a hands-on and a hearts-in experience, where theories that we've studied are actually really put to the test. It's designed to hone in and improve all of our policy skills. It's designed to help us synthesize a lot of information that comes to us, in this case from about 35 different speakers over a few days. It's designed to help us speak succinctly, and yes, students, ask succinct questions. It is designed to help us enunciate our stances with vigor, with clarity, to demonstrate our critical thinking, and to understand all of the things that really make policy tick, the good news and the bad news of policy. But the Federal Policy Institute is also really quirky, and it takes a lot of support from our administration to have this take place. Half of it takes place at TC, half of it takes place in D.C. Half of it is in the first semester, the other half of it is in the second semester. Think about how we challenge our registrar when it comes time to grading. Half of it's theoretical, half of it's applied. Half the students are policy students, the other half represent many different departments within our institution. By design, FPIers are energetic, they've got to be to withstand the schedule. They are eclectic, they represent very diverse backgrounds and very, very, very diverse interests. As a result, students learn as much from each other as they do from their professors, their teaching assistants, and indeed from the speakers. We would not be doing our job if they came away from this experience having all of their questions answered. Our job is to provoke thought, to provoke inquiry, and to tackle some of the really fundamental but very real policy issues that indeed we face. You know, how much of federal policy should really be expanded? How much is a federal role? How much is a state role? Why indeed is the policy process so incredibly porous? And does that policy make policy better or not? To get to these questions, FPIers interact with and I mean the policy leaders in our country. They are encouraged to ask theoretical questions, practical questions, brilliant ones, probingly honest ones, and indeed they do. They press our speakers to talk about what's best about their work, what's worst about their work, what do they feel fulfilled by, what do they feel compromised by. And so this is a time where students get to be exposed to really honest reflection and honest interpretation in a very intimate setting. We keep the class limited precisely to maintain this aura. This year has been interesting. This year has been focused a great deal on issues related to equity. Our speakers have affirmed, and I want to quote, how the law has been complicit to inequity. Think about that, how the law has been complicit to inequity. We learned about slave codes and about their impact on education. We learned that class is a social construct, a result of, and I quote, opportunity denied. The favorite quote for most of us was, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. Good. And actually, if you really think about it, that has incredible salience. We learned a lot about the budget process. We learned a lot about what the Domestic Policy Council does. We actually were on the Hill, and we spoke with staff who represented the D's and the R's, the House and the Senate. And this year we even had a very long tutorial in the appropriations process from one of our speakers. We indeed were very fortunate to meet with someone from the Domestic Policy Council. That will be augmented this afternoon. And we also met with presidential appointees in the United States Department of Education and representatives from Health and Human Services, because we see education as really a comprehensive approach to human and child development. We learned that there probably isn't going to be much new legislation, certainly not between now and the election. People were quite honest about that. But we learned that people are not giving up hope and are working in a way around the policy structure to use some policy tools like regulations And so we are confident that some of the legacies of this administration will indeed be retained. We also learned about contentiousness, and I want to be really open about that. Take, for example, the admonition from one important Republican congressman to President Biden. Do you know what I'm going to say? Quote, "You had better get a parking spot on Capitol Hill because you're going to be up here a lot." That suggests that there was not going to be room for much compromise and that we were going to put the president through his steps. We learned a lot how to discern about political ideologies, particularly today when we were at the Heritage Institute and got a really good understanding of perspectives that may not represent some of the conventional ones that are often characterized at Teachers College. Mostly, I would say that what I think we learned was firsthand how policy really can be the tool, the most potent tool, to let us reach our aspirations on behalf of children and families. And that, indeed, is a total privilege. It is also an incredible privilege to be able to teach and work with such incredibly bright and talented students. And I really mean this. We've talked a lot about the faculty, and indeed we do have a fabulous faculty, but we also have wonderful students. Some of our students have been turned on to policy and are likely to stay in D.C. Others, in private conversations, have been turned off by this. They don't want anything to do. They don't want anything to do with policy. But whatever their career choices are, I can honestly say that you should know that they represent our institution well. I cannot tell you the number of speakers who come and say to me, their intelligence is palpable. That's a quote. When they ask questions, people say, well, I have to think about that, or I've never really thought about that. That is a very good probing question. So we are producing very thoughtful students, very passionate students, very caring students, and very, very articulate students. I also want to say that we should be very, very proud that TC allows a course of this nature to take place. Indeed, we also should be proud that we host the most wonderful group of FPIers that exists. So I'm going to ask the 2024 FPIers to please stand up. Come on. Okay, and come up front. Come up front really quickly. Hurry up. Okay. As they come up, I want you to notice the energy. You can get closer to me. I'm not going to bite you. Come on, everybody. Okay. You can feel kind of the energy and the camaraderie that exists amongst the group. We work hard to try to incentivize that. We ask students not to sit next to the same person all the time. They hate me for that, but anyway. Okay, but now just to show, students, I'm going to ask you to do something. You're not prepared for this, I don't think, but I would like each of you to think of one word that is explaining your experience at FPI. And this is going to be really start fire. Go ahead. Start, Juliet, start.
Passion.
Passion. Go ahead.
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment. Perplexing.
Dynamic.
Dynamic. Meaningful.
Exciting.
Exciting.
Relationships.
Relationships.
Informative.
Informative.
Dedication.
Dedication.
Eye-opening.
Exhilarating.
Shocking.
Informative.
Hope.
Hope. Provocative, yeah.
Purposeful.
Mm-hmm.
Unique.
Transformative. Resilience.
Exhilarating also. Distinguished. Impactful.
Good.
Excellent.
Who did we not hear from? Did we get it?
Collaboration and conflict.
That was two. That was three. She cheated. Anybody else? Did we hear from everybody? That's it. So you get a sense of what their experience of the week is. And I just want to say we're only 3/5 done. We've got 2 more days to go. So thank you all very, very much. Appreciate you being put on the spot. Here, let me put you on the spot. It's really a privilege and a joy to teach. No matter where you are, you're lucky enough to do it. And it's a privilege and a joy to teach these students at this institution. This would not happen, however, if there were not an incredible team that was handling this. I want to acknowledge Mike Usdan, who was the former president of the Institute for Educational Leadership. Mike is not with us this evening, but everybody loves him tremendously. I also want to, from IEL, express complete thanks to Michelle Blackburn and to her assistant. Michelle, where are you? You here? Stand up. There she is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to her assistant, Francine. Francis, I want to get a Katala. You guys are our mainstay, and indeed, we would not be able to do this. Of course, none of this would have been possible without the vision of Helen Malone. Helen, where are you? Good. And the IEL president, Eddie Cohn. Eddie, where are you? There, good. Welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally, it is really important for you to know that this is a complex undertaking to put together, and that I am standing before you only because I have 2 pillars on which I stand and 2 rocks. They are Trevor Basden. Trevor, stand up. And where's Hannah? Woo! And where's Hannah? Hannah, do this. Where are you? There. Come on, stand up. Woo! Good, 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 good. So you get the sense this is a spirited group. And it is a wonderful group, and we hope it will continue to be a wonderful experience and that TC will continue to be represented well in DC. In a way, we really are very well represented in DC, and that is my second challenge, and that is to do my introduction. I am really honored to do this. I am really honored to be able to introduce one of TC's very finest, one who totally embodies the reasons why we're here tonight. A TC alum, a policy specialist? Could there be a more magical combination? I don't think so. Jessica Cardichon has and is TC policy students' dream. Ready? It's the dream job, and you know what? She deserves the dream job. Having completed her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Michigan, go blue. We've got a lot of go bluers in the room. Yeah. She came to TC and then earned a master's and a PhD in politics and education, and then a law degree from Pace University. She is so well prepared for her current, demanding, influential, and highly important role as Special Assistant to the President of the United States, I get chills as I say this, for education as a part of the Domestic Policy Council. Majestically impressive, this responsibility is huge. And we're going to hear a lot about it this evening, and I believe you're going to have a chance to ask some questions. Is that correct? Good. But what really makes Jessica so incredibly special is that she's held about every possible dream policy job in this city that anybody could potentially aspire to. She began as a teacher in the New York City public schools, and she knows our realities. She has spent time and effort working to improve these realities as a program manager at the New Tech Academy at TC. She's been a senior director of policy, the Policy Academy, and the Alliance for Excellent Education, as the director of the Washington office and director of federal policy for the Learning Policy Institute, an organization started by Linda Darling Hammond that we all rely on very, very heavily. So that's just for beginners. She knows the legislative branch, having worked in the office of United States Senator Bernie, good, as the Education Policy Director for the United States Senate, louder, Help committee. Good, good, good. She knows the executive branch, and she's been an A-team member of the Biden-Harris transition team, and she's been the deputy assistant director, I have to read all this, for PETA 12 for the Office of Planning, Evaluation, and Policy Development at the United States Office of Education, and as if that weren't enough, she also knows academia, having been an adjunct professor at Georgetown University. Can you possibly think of anybody more accomplished, more perfect to speak with us tonight? I know you will join me in giving the warmest TC welcome possible to Jessica. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you. I feel like I'm set up to disappoint. So hopefully not. I did stay at those jobs for a while. I just want to be clear. I wasn't like just moving. Sounds like so great. And I hear everything's good next door, so that's good. So thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here among fellow Teacher College alums and current students. It's really an honor, and I've been reflecting a lot on my Teachers College experience, particularly the last couple of weeks. I'm sure particularly for alum, you often get people who are considering going to grad school reaching out to you and asking what was your experience like in grad school. And every time I talk about it, the first thing I say is I loved grad school. I loved Teachers College. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I loved everything about it. And I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity that I had at Teachers College. It is really foundational to me both personally and professionally. Growing up working in education was not something that was on my radar at all. I think I thought about law school, other things. I wasn't quite sure. And then my last year of college, I took a course and worked in a juvenile justice setting, teaching art and tutoring, and it was a profound experience, life-changing experience for me, where I saw what the power of education could provide and what a lack of access to a quality education could deny. I went into teaching right after undergrad without any background in education, and to be honest, it's something, while I don't regret going into teaching, it carried very heavily on me that I was not prepared to be the kind of teacher that my students deserved on day one, and I think about that often. So I knew there was a lot for me to learn to be good at my job, not only from other teachers and from students and from others who had done this, but really just understanding the education system, and where better to go than Teachers College. And was really fortunate to be accepted in the master's program at TC. My first semester, my professor was the New York City school chancellor at the time. So the bar was set really high. 2 years went by really quickly. I wasn't done. Again, everyone asked what was your 5-year plan. I didn't have one, but I loved Teachers College, and then pursued the doctorate because I didn't want to leave. Today, I remember the books I read, the discussions led by professors, what I learned from my peers, group projects, and that's when people say when you reflect on graduate school, I remember this. I remember the substance of it, and how much I learned and how much I apply that. So I continued to teach for 7 years. I'll kind of skip ahead a little bit. Thank you for describing what I did, but had always planned on doing work in probably New York City, policy work, and then ended up in D.C. My husband is now retired military, but that's how we ended up here, and thought, oh, maybe I have to. Federal policy was not, again, part of a plan. And then I was really fortunate to get a job in Senator Sanders' office. I remember him specifically saying to me, do you have any experience in D.C.? And I said, other than a high school trip, none whatsoever. And thought, like, I don't have that D.C. background. But we spoke for about an hour about education policy. And I would not have been able to have the conversation with him that I had if I had not gone to Teachers College, and took a chance on me. And again, a theme of gratitude for people who've taken chances on me. And then realized I had a lot to learn about DC and how things worked. So I was fortunate to work for Linda Darling Hammond at the Learning Policy Institute, and kind of reminded me of my Teachers College days around researchers and practitioners and people who grappled with really hard things, but also were very much part of a team, and probably one of the least drama-free environments where we were all just kind of in it together on the same mission. And again, without those opportunities, would not have led me to the Biden-Harris transition team and then the administration. So I was asked to kind of share pivotal moments in my career, and I don't think it was one moment. I think I've been just really lucky to work with brilliant and dedicated people who were invested in my success because they knew it made the work better. And that's where I've spent most of my time, working with people who work on behalf of children and youth, understand the weight of the work and the urgency, and that's always been the focus for the work that we did. So I was asked to share 2 to 3 major challenges, and I missed a lot. Thank you very much. You covered, I was like, there's probably 20 of them. But the 3 that kind of came to mind, the first one to me is just around how schools are funded. Rather than providing students with the greatest need more resources, we often provide them with less. I know you've all probably studied a lot of this, so I'm preaching to the choir on this. But I think the fact that so many schools in our country have to choose between advanced placement and after-school programs and investing in HVAC systems and paying their teachers a livable and competitive wage is not something I think we talk enough about. We go right to the policy and kind of in some ways, I feel in conversations have jumped over the fact that our schools are not funded the way that they should be funded. And so I will always say that money matters, money well spent matters, and I think it should be at the top of almost every policy conversation. Second, in many ways, I think we're making a lot of real progress around social, emotional, and mental health. I was happy that was referenced earlier, how foundational it is to teaching and learning, the science of learning and development. I think, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, in some communities, there's a step back from embracing the science and the importance of social and emotional development. And I feel that we could be working at a greater pace. And then building off of that, we all know the importance of safe, inclusive, and identity-safe learning environments for our children and our youth and their families. And it's been disheartening to see policies across the country that are both exclusionary and create environments that are unsafe for students, particularly those who are at a very vulnerable time in their life. I think some of these policies are mean-spirited, and I think often leave students harmed and unseen. And I think that's always a hard thing to see and try and figure out how to work against. And again, as mentioned earlier, it is challenging how politicized public education is. I first had said how it's become, but I was like, no, I think it's always been this way. And so it makes it hard to have conversations grounded in research. The other thing I think is also hard is everyone wants, like, what's the one thing we can do to fix everything? And they don't want to hear nuance. And that can always be a real challenge with policy. But I will end on a positive, optimistic note. So the things that I'm most optimistic about are the people I get to do the work with every day. We hear from teachers, paraprofessionals, students, school leaders, and when you hear the amazing work that's happening and that they're doing, it is really hard to not be optimistic about and hopeful about the work that's ahead. And the other thing that gives me optimism is a number of policymakers on the Hill, staff who want to know, what does the research say? And if that's the starting point, that's really helpful. There are plenty of people who don't ask when you make policy, what does the research say, unfortunately. And so I love being in environments, and I've been really fortunate where that is one of the first questions. Not the only question, but the first question. And so I'm optimistic about the people doing the work, finding ways to do it in ways that are asset-based, that are empowering for others. There's definitely a shift in how we talk and how we partner with the people that we do work with. I think there's more work to be done, but I think we're making progress. So those are just a couple of things. I'm really, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Happy to answer any questions or hear comments, anything that might be helpful. But that's it. Sure, I'll fill. Sure. Thank you.